People who watch security cameras for a living, what creepy things have you tried to forget? Part 2. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. Watched footage from the pre-IS night of a nurse walking onto an elevator, casually talking on the phone. As she walked off, a little log of poop slid out of her pant leg. The following 60 minutes of video were hilarious reactions, and lack of reactions, to the poop log. Lack of reaction came from random folks who didn't look up from their phone. One unfortunate soul stepped right in it. I wonder when they finally noticed that they stepped into human po'o. I caught on camera a couple running across the street and onto my client's property. I thought, oh great, some kid's about to fuck, better go scare them. I walked toward the door, stopped, decided I wanted to get the scaring on camera. I got back to the camera, just missing them walking past the door. I see them peeking out from behind a storage unit and I head outside. As I approached them, they had just left from behind the storage. I yelled something at them, I can't remember what. Then a fucking helicopter flies over and lights us up, followed by a swarm of police cars. They just shot someone across the street, and if I'd gone out the door when I was first going to, I would have been shot as well. I'm a fast draw, but drawing down on someone who already has a gun out takes a world-class shooter, which I am not. Addition. They'd been hiding the gun behind the storage unit. Cops didn't find it, and it took me actually going back there and pulling trash for them to continue the search. I found it. That was the first of 2 firearms I located for Phoenix PD in 6 months. Later I helped police locate a bullet casing at another job. Finding the casing caused the guy's girlfriend to let police search her apartment and find the gun. He'd been shooting into the air to intimidate someone. Edit. Wording in addition to post. Edit 2. Welp, something happened again. I'm not sure how much I can say, and I can't share the video until I'm sure what's happening with the guy criminally. I had to remove a BMA from our property last night as he was threatening a manager. When we got outside, he was threatening to shoot me and the manager, saying he wanted to fight, that he'd come back, etc. Then he jumps in his car and accelerates right at me. He was not trying to get out of the parking lot, because right behind me was another car. He got within 2 feet, I jumped back, drew my firearm. The only thing that snapped me out of that reflex to fire was him hitting his brake and throwing his hands in front of his face. It was at that moment that I woke up. I cannot for the life of me remember drawing my gun. I watched it on camera several times. All I could think about after was my newborn son, 14 days old, growing up fatherless. Then after that it was thoughts about the people sitting in his car who may have been killed had I fired on him. I was completely justified to shoot. Police would have shot, and the hands up and hitting the brakes are the only thing that kept me from shooting. We were both 5 pounds of trigger pull weight away from having our lives changed last night. It keeps playing over and over in my head. Finally, something I can participate in. I used to be a security guard and was stationed at an outdoor engine parts manufacturer's world headquarters office. They had a parking lot that was next to the woods, and a man came out of the tree line during the night and was staring at the camera for an hour straight. We had called the authorities to make a trespassing complaint as none of us wanted to go out and confront him. Around the hour mark, he suddenly sprinted backwards into the woods. The police never found anyone. Shit creeps me out whenever I think about it. Tried to forget this one. Was in college, working for a security company at a manufacturing plant. We had a gate that faced near an airport, back road. There were no sidewalks on this road, and it was often busy as a cut through to another high traffic road. Saw an intoxicated guy. Drugs or alcohol. Try to walk on the curb like a balancing beam. Sleep and fall in front of an oncoming truck that was speeding through the area to get around the backed up traffic. This was in broad daylight, around 4 in the afternoon. Before he fell, we pulled him on the camera and made the comment, he's going to get himself killed. I used to work in IT. At some point I need to clean up a network drive and found a saved security camera video folder labeled, Buttman. I had to go ask the security guy if I wanted to know who Buttman was, and if I could delete him. Turned out it was a man whom would in the middle of the night, raid our cigarette disposal bucket near the side door, empty it into a bag, and run off one of the videos. It appears he was just wolfing down cigarette butts from his baggie. I'm a little late to the party, but here goes. I am a correctional officer on the night shift, so my job involves a lot of watching cameras and performing cell checks. One night, I'm sitting in my office around 03:00 and some movement on the CCTV catches my eye. I look up and there is this big dude walking through my jail, looking like he was on a mission. The only way into the jail is through the booking room right next to my office, and I was 100% sure nobody had walked past me. So my mind starts racing. Did I leave a cell door unlocked? Has a violent inmate escaped? Our cameras are old and the halls are dark at night, so I couldn't see many details on the guy. Just that he seemed to be scoping all the other inmates out as he made his way through the cell blocks. As I'm trying to process all of this, I see him suddenly stop and change direction, starting beeline straight to my office. With no time to do anything else, I jump up and run over to the door, and get ready for the fight. I waited for what felt like an eternity for this guy to bust my door in, with a full-on adrenaline rush. But he never showed up. I glanced back at the cameras and he was gone, disappeared into the ether. After scratching my head for a minute, I went to review the footage. That's when I realized that there was a glitch in our camera's playback that had caused a half-hour delay, and the guy in the video was just me doing a cell check and heading back to my own office. Never been more relieved in my life. Creepy then funny. I was a property manager at a giant apartment complex for a year. Part of my job was to take complaints that came in during my off hours, review tapes to see what the cams caught, then address the problem. We got calls for people fucking in the spa a lot. On the video, a young couple was doing the biz in the spa in just about every position. I recognized them and got the form out to issue the warning when the maintenance supervisor says hold on. He zooms all the way in and across the property. He could see a woman we all knew sitting on her patio smoking a cigarette watching. We thought, oh man, she's enjoying the show. Then we noticed there's the glow of the cig and a second glow, a small red light. She was taping the whole thing with a handy cam. She was a pastor at the local church who was always telling us how bad we were for allowing smoking and drinking on the property. She recommended multiple times that we update our rules to align more with the moral teachings of the church. Used to be an emergency dispatcher for a university, and we had access to nearly all the cameras across campus. You'd see the usual things that one would expect: drunken parties, drunken people fighting things, etc. Found a lot of stalkers this way. Worst was a rape. Just enough off cam that you could barely see what was happening. She hid under the desk afterward, which was why I initially started looking through footage. We couldn't find her. The guy just casually zipped up on his way out the door. My time to shine. My first job out of college was working for a big-ass security company, think worldwide big. I was doing electrical engineering and security system design for them. One of the first assignments I had was assisting in writing a report about a security system for a nuclear storage facility we had designed that had been infiltrated by nuns, no joke. Basically, the facility got invaded by octogenarian nuns who started covering the nuclear storage facility in blood they had conveniently provided in water bottles. The footage was jarring, in quite a few ways. Not a security officer, but I work in a teaching hospital, and, with permission, we record surgeries so the interns, residents, attending can review them for Monday mornings. Basically, meetings where you have to explain what went very bad or very good in the surgical theater. Well, I'm reviewing this one tape where something happened with the anesthesia during the procedure, and had an attending not caught the error, the patient would have definitely left in a body bag. We had to full-on stop the surgery, give this poor dude Narcan and crudely sew him up and go back in the next day. Turns out, one of the interns was skimming narcotics, and as a result was high, and dosed the fentanyl in *** milligrams instead of micrograms. Fuck that intern. And yes, he lost his license. Was my mom's experience. She works on a cruise ship and has to go through surveillance footage and put the footage in different folders. She said she has nightmares of one simple but creepy thing. One night a guy walked out of a cabin into the view of the camera and stood for a few minutes, doing nothing. Then looked up at the camera, moved as close to it as possible and smiled into the camera for about 5 minutes, but she said watching it felt as if he was looking into the camera for hours. She said it's just something she can't get out of her head and it made her feel so uncomfortable. The closest to a horror movie IRL thing I've ever seen. Some of the patient rooms in our hospital on the psych floor have cameras to help monitor patients so they don't move around too much or hurt themselves since they are often confused, etc. Obviously the night vision, low light camera makes everything look creepy. One night a phlebotomist came running out of a room totally freaking out. We looked at the camera footage to see what had happened. Patient was an old lady. Video shows a dark empty room. The phlebotomist walks in and sees that the bed is empty and thinks they must have moved the patient. At that point, as she turns around, the door swings, and standing behind the door looking at her, what I can only describe as pure hatred in her eyes, is the patient, naked, with her long hair down to her waist. The phlebotomist was scared as anyone would be. She finally managed to say, "Mrs. Shelby, I'm from the lab and I'm here to draw some blood. Is that okay?" And the patient just said, "No. Get out." Phlebotomist didn't need to be told twice. We walked over to the room and the old lady was back in bed sleeping as peaceful as could be. Never remembered a moment of it. Was a security coordinator for a large electric company and had access to like 80+ facilities CCTV infrastructures. Was doing maintenance check on some random train station at like 3 a.m. Panned a camera as far to the right as possible to check that it was functioning. And this dude was on all fours eating a deer in the middle of the tracks. Watched him for like 10 minutes and went to get the other guy on shift. When I came back, the dude was gone. Rewound it, and the dude stopped munching on the carcass, wiped the gore off his face, and walked into the woods like he didn't have a care in the world. Thank you all for the gold and silver smiley face. Read all the comments, most asked questions and answers that I noticed. Where did this happen? Iowa. Why did you just stand there like a dumb ass? Was late at night at a middle of a long shift. Also didn't really process WTF was happening. Kinda forgot I had someone else in the office that could come over and see WTF was going on. What was he wearing? Was kinda hard to tell, as the CCTV was basically filming at the end of its effective view. Looked like he was wearing some kinda heavy outerwear, like something you would work outside in the winter with. It was late fall, so nights would dip into the 30s. Pics or it didn't happen. Part of the job was a very restrictive NDA, as in you can't bring any sort of recording out of the facility. I wasn't even allowed to bring a notepad with my nightly notes out of the office. Plus, this was before most people had decent cameras on their phones. We still were using film cameras to do most documentation. At one of our locations, the overnight on-site technician looked at the cameras and saw a customer floating through the hallways with their body upright stiff as a board. He said it sent a shiver down his spine. Guy rounded the corner and on the next camera he could see he was riding on a hoverboard through the hallways. Edit. A couple of stories from when I was the overnight server monkey at a data center, not really camera related. Eyes through the fence. Big buildings like ours need a lot of cooling, so we have massive outdoor plants dedicated to making hot air cold again. Part of my nightly checks was to make sure the hot air was getting colder and the plants were shaking, rocking, flaming, or sparking. This involved going outside and walking along a slotted fence. From time to time I'd shine my light out there and be greeted with eyes staring right back. 9/10 times they were deer. Sometimes they were coyotes or opossums. Santa. This one was probably the ice expanding on the roof, but I would hear it in the summertime as well. I chalked it up to some kind of air handling equipment shutting. But every once in a while I would hear loud banging on the roof. Every time I heard it I'd act like a giddy kid on Christmas and shout, "Santa!" The Cube Farms. We had a lot of unused space in the building. Most of the unused space was abandoned Cube Farms from when our building was an HQ for a company. I went to explore through them one night and there was a massive creep factor. Chairs gathered in some cubes, ceiling tiles missing, flicking lights, cold spots. Paranormal wet dream. Most of it was from our lack of maintenance or caring of airflow. But creepy nevertheless. Phantom toilets. Never figured this one out, but we had 14 bathrooms in our building for our dozen or so staff. Sometimes on my rounds I'd walk by a bathroom and hear a toilet or two flush. That one usually got me. Watched a female employee, in the span of maybe a minute, pick her nose, itch her front junk like a champ, then reverse things up and go whole hand down her crack, scratching. Large lady. Then she pulled up the hand to her face and sniffed. Then inexplicably, she licked the pointer finger. I've seen all manner of weird shit and that one sticks with me. Seen people piss, shit, whatever in the open, or in fitting rooms. Or people getting it on in the fitting rooms. Watched several dudes punching the purple clown. Always weird to confront them. Had to apprehend one for spunking on a rack of FUBU. Worst of the pervs are usually following young girls around, snapping photos, thinking no one sees them. And yes, I mean underage, sometimes horribly underage girls. Coworker of mine had to have a guy arrested who was jacking it in the children's section while children were nearby. I was happy I wasn't there for that. I'm not violent, and I'm about 100% certain I wouldn't have done anything more than call the police like she did. It's more the frustration that you want to slap the shit out of someone and you know you can't do it. People will do crazy shit when they don't think they're being watched. Spent a few years working front desk for various shifts at a few hotels, moved a lot during this time, so I got a pretty big sampling of people from here and there. But the one thing I will never forget was right here in my home state of KY, in broad daylight. A woman who did not have a room with us walked into the pool area from the large, sliding glass window, speaking on her cell phone with a bag hanging from that hand, and a toddler walking with her on the other hand. She let go of the toddler, then proceeded to get completely nude and continue her conversation standing in the pool area. Not the pool itself, just the pool area. I saw a guy at my old job have a seizure on camera. It was at a liquor store. He was a town regularly and never took care of himself. Looked off, but not even drunk. In the middle of counting his change, his head snaps up in the air like he's looking to the heavens above. Then just falls right onto the ground. His head missed this wooden wine display by an inch or two. He flailed around and all the change he had was scattered along the ground. While one of the guys I work with called 911, paramedics ended up coming and taking him to the hospital. He was okay, but ended up spending a couple days there. The best part of the story is while this guy is seizing out, he was in front of the cooler of 40s. So this one impatient customer, you can see his head sorta looking for a way around to get his booze. He steps over this dude, gingerly opens the cooler door, and grabs his old English 40, before walking up to the register. Not a job, but my so and I have the owlet monitor for our infant looking at his crib and room. It's set up like CCTV and it's creepy to begin with. I wake up at 2 a.m. and I go check on him and I go back to bed. Once in bed I get on my phone to view the monitor just for reassurance and I see two light dots like eyes and night vision in the window of his room. I first shit my pants and I go in the room to check everything out. I can't see anything outside, so I turn on the monitor again and don't see the dots anymore, so I think it could be a dog or something. I go back to bed and wake up again an hour later to check the monitor and the dots are fucking there again, so I grab a pistol and go outside around his room and check the spot by the window, really ready to have to pull the trigger. Adrenaline is on full blast. I don't find or see anything, but the monkey grass has been mashed down by that window like something sat there for a while. I set up a sleeping bag in my son's room after that for a couple nights and I checked the monitor so I could see what the night vision caught, but I never saw those lights again. I'm super thankful it was just that, but I was scared.